Hi, my name is Linda Stallings with Chesapeake Dog Training in Annapolis, Maryland, and I just wanted to put together a quick video to talk about one of the pieces of equipment that I really like to use for many different kinds of dogs, all breeds, ages, sizes, temperaments, personalities, and that is a prong collar. Prong collar looks like this. The brand that I really prefer over any other is the Springer. They're made in Germany. They're just the best made and the safest ones to use. The prong collar is an aversive tool, right? It's designed to apply some pressure to not feel great when the dog pulls against it or a pressure is applied to it. For that reason, though, you can communicate very quickly and precisely that the dog needs to do something different. Either it needs to do a behavior, a new behavior, or use it to communicate to do something, or also, of course, you can use it as a correction to communicate not to do something again in the future. The prong collars come in 3 different sizes. This is the large, the 3.0 millimeter size. There's also the small here, which is a 2.25 millimeter. And then the smallest one, let me see, I've got it on a dog here. The smallest one is the micro prong. It's very small. And this works great for some of the toy breeds. So those are the 3 sizes. To fit a prong collar, it's very important that they're fitted correctly. Most of the time I see dogs that come in with them already on, they're way too big. If it can fit over a dog's head, it's too big. It needs to sit very high up by the ears and stay up there, ideally. Initially, I like to fit them pretty snug. They don't need to be having pressure on the dog without the leash engaged at all, and yet I don't want them dropping down the neck. I also want so that when we apply the leash pressure, we're just adding a little pressure by making it more snug, since it's already kind of just resting nicely on the dog's neck. If it's too loose, we have to apply so much more pressure and movement from the leash to apply the same pressure. And generally, then when the dog feels the collar, there's more force behind it, and it becomes more corrective. And over time, the dog gets desensitized to it, and you have to use more and more force to get the same level of response. So initially, I like them to be very snug, so that we're just doing tiny little pressure with the leash. The way the pressure is applied is the prong collar is kind of made up of 2 different circles. The circle that has the prong on it, and then there's a metal chain circle, which often looks like a triangle when it's on the dog. When the leash is attached to the chain circle, it obviously makes the circumference of the prong circle smaller, so that's where we get the pressure. The reason that these are a nice, safe tool to use if they're used correctly is that it can't choke the dog like a choke chain would. It stops at a certain point and can't get any smaller than that. And also, because of how the prongs sit on the dog's neck, there's not a steady pressure against the windpipe and all the other things in the throat and neck that you don't want to damage. So in that way, they're safe as well. I mean, every piece of equipment has its pros and cons. The one drawback of this is, on occasion, especially in like white or red pit bulls, dogs with really short hair or that have very sensitive skin, sometimes you can get some chafing with the metal. And then there are some rubber tips you can use if it's just a metal allergy, or some other solutions that you can come up with that will still allow you to use a prong collar because it's such a great communication tool, but without bothering the dog's skin at all. But this is really a great tool. As humans, we tend to think it looks like a medieval torture device or something that looks just really ominous and scary. The reason why I believe it's a fair and one of the best tools to use for a dog is because dogs have teeth, and they use their teeth a lot. Especially as a young puppy, a mother dog would kind of bite the back of the neck of a dog. And not that I think that dogs think this is teeth, because of course they know it's a collar and not teeth, but the sensation itself, the physical sensation of having something kind of hard and pokey on your body, especially your neck, is very familiar to dogs, and it just makes sense. It makes more sense than some of the other equipment that humans have come up with that works in some situations, but this, to me, most dogs take to a prong collar pretty well, and it just makes sense automatically. It's a more natural way to communicate for them. So to get it on and off, you take it apart at any one of the links. To make it smaller, you would just take out some links, right? So I would just take out one or more links. I try not to take out more than 4 before going down to the next size, because then you're not left with, there's only 10 prongs in each collar, so you have to leave enough that it's effective and can apply it kind of even pressure all around. And then to put it back together, you stick one side in, squeeze it, and put the other side in. To get it off, I usually push up a little bit, enough so I can squeeze the top, squeeze it open. The only places I don't recommend doing it is that the small and the medium size have a metal plate in the middle. I find it pretty difficult to get it back in there, but you certainly can do it. And if you do it at the last link, if it flips around, sometimes people get confused about why it won't fit. So either just remember to flip it back around, or just pick any of the ones in the middle. The more you do it, obviously the metal bends a little bit and the more comfortable you get with it, and it's really not very difficult. But for anyone with arthritis or that has a difficult time with it, there's some other solutions we have too. But ideally, this is the collar we would be using. Okay, so let me show you, I'm not going to talk too much about how to use it, really just how to get it on a dog. I have a couple dogs here, so I can just show you how to kind of fit it. Come here, Tallulah, good girl. This is little Tallulah. She's a Chihuahua Dachshund mix, and she is a wonderful dog, but she's a little bit leash reactive. So one way is helpful to communicate with her when we're walking past other dogs is to use one of the little micro prongs. I picked 2 of the boarding dogs today that were pretty opposite in personality and breed and size. So we put that on Tallulah. We want it to be very high up on her neck like that, and then we would attach the regular leash to this. She just has a slip leash on right now, but we would attach the regular leash there. And then of course to take it off, we would just undo the prongs like that. It's incredible how wonderful a micro prong can be for some of these little guys. I know a lot of owners, it's harder for them to think about putting an aversive piece of equipment on a dog this size, but it's amazing how quickly it can really make a big difference. Small dogs, just like large dogs, they need the same kind of communication. So anyway, that side, micro prong, would be great for a Tallulah sized dog. Let me get one other dog. Good boy. Come on, Finn. Come on, Finn. Come up here, buddy. Come up here. Good boy. You're like, I don't know what we're doing. Good boy. This is Finn. He is a, oh, no. Come here, Finn. There we go. Finn is a Staffordshire Terrier who apparently is not used to being on the paws table. He would use the large size, or what's called, the size is called medium. So the same thing, we're going to put it on him in the same way, high up by the ears and fairly snug, right? You can see it's a little bit tricky to move it around the neck, especially if you have dogs with long hair, the doodles, the goldens. But even shepherds or labs that have kind of straight, medium-sized hair, not too bad. You just want to be able to move it around, and then you would of course attach the leash here. So you can see how there gets to be kind of a triangle there. And this is how snug I would have it at first, so that I can kind of barely just move it around, but it's not actually applying pressure when the leash isn't on. And this is the size I would use for Finn. After a week or so, and the dog's used to the prong collar and the sensation and has the hang of the pressure and the release, I would add a link, just because then at that point we might need to use it for a little more correction once the dog knows what they're doing, and we could use a little more circumference to get other ways to communicate in the beginning, but I just like to have it a little bit of pressure, release, a little bit of pressure, release. I'll do another video about how to use it, but in the very beginning use a very short leash, and literally just get the dog used to having the pressure come and release. In my opinion, the most important thing, the absolute most important thing anytime you're using an aversive piece of equipment is that the dog learns how to make the sensation go away and or how to avoid it. So as long as the dog knows that they can make the pressure go away by following through with whatever you're asking them to do, you don't get anxiety and you don't get worry and fear. And in fact, the prong collar can be excellent to use for fearful and timid dogs, because it gives them a better idea of what you need them to do. So again, we'll go into more of that later, but as long as it's fitted properly, it's used properly, and the dog learns how to avoid the pressure of it or make it stop and go away, excellent, excellent way to communicate with a dog. Of course, still goes along with a lot of training. It's not the easy button or the magic potion of any kind, but a great tool to communicate very well. So, I think that's it. Thanks.